The Belfast Agreement by Merav, Frank, Lauren Ruby, and Eesha Kandukuri. The Belfast Agreement, also known as the Good Friday Agreement, was an agreement created to unify Northern Ireland. Since the creation of Northern Ireland in 1921, Northern Ireland's government system has not worked well, for many reasons, including how the government marginalized the Catholic minority. The Belfast Agreement, signed on April 10th in 1998, was made to stop the horrible treatment of the Catholic minority and many other citizens. With the hard work of many people, the Belfast Agreement managed to stop the oppression, attacks, bombings, and many more things that were hurting Northern Ireland. The Belfast Agreement still stands today and has helped Northern Ireland create a better government and better policies that they can stick to. For a very long time, the British government had control over all of Ireland. Most of Ireland wanted to have some sort of freedom from Britain. For example, a group called the Irish Nationalists wanted to completely break off ties with Britain. But there was one party, known as the Unionists, that wanted to keep Ireland in its current form, and they had been very successful at keeping home rule from being passed. The Government of Ireland Act of 1920 was created. This act is an agreement that separates Ireland into two countries, Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. Northern Ireland was created on May 3rd, 1921, under the Government of Ireland Act of 1920. Northern Ireland received self-government within the United Kingdom. As mentioned earlier, there were two main parties in Northern Ireland at the time. The Unionists were largely Protestant and wanted to maintain ties with the United Kingdom, while the Nationalists were mainly Roman Catholics and desired unification with the rest of Ireland. The Unionist Party was in control, and this quickly created a deep distrust between the Catholic and Protestant communities. Many elections were rigged so the Unionists would win, and there was a lot of discrimination in employment. You could rarely see a Catholic with a senior position. A Nobel Prize, it said that David Trimble said, Ulster Unionists, fearful of being isolated on this island, built a solid house. It was a cold house for Catholics.
The Troubles were a religious and political conflict that lasted 30 years where there was a lot of British control in Northern Ireland. During the Troubles, there were many bombings and attacks by terrorists, and people wanted to have this changed. The Troubles refers to a violent 30-year conflict framed by a civil rights march in Londonderry on 5 October 1968 and the Good Friday Agreement on 10 April 1998. At the heart of the conflict lay the constitutional status of Northern Ireland. BBC. This conflict was based off the two groups, Unionists and Nationalists. Both groups had different ideas about how Northern Ireland should be governed. Unionists wanted Northern Ireland to remain being governed by the United Kingdom, while Nationalists wanted to be part of the Republic of Ireland. Unionists were largely Protestant, while Nationalists were largely Catholic. In 1969, the Irish Republican Army, also known as the IRA, was created. The IRA aimed to unify Ireland and was willing to harm people to do so. They were strictly against British rule in Ireland. Part of the reason the Belfast Agreement was created was to stop the IRA. In 1970, the IRA had existed for a year and was starting to affect many people. One of the people who was affected was Helen McKendry when the IRA took her mother. In 1972, Jean McConville was kidnapped and killed by the IRA after they accused her of passing information to British forces. When Helen McKendry's mother was abducted by the IRA, she was never seen again. The Belfast Agreement has stopped these sorts of bad things from happening again.
The Belfast Agreement had many positive and negative short-term and long-term impacts. First of all, the Belfast Agreement brought to an end the 30 years of conflict in Northern Ireland about limited opinions, called the Troubles. According to BBC, over 3,600 people were killed and thousands more injured. Over the course of 3 decades, violence on the streets of Northern Ireland was commonplace and spilled over into Great Britain, the Republic of Ireland, and as far afield as Gibraltar." End quote. The Belfast Agreement set up an assembly in which the power is shared and spread throughout the people. There is a community created in which both the Protestants and the Catholics get to know each other better and make their decisions while working together and while they get the consent of both communities. This agreement still didn't cause complete peace or freedom. In July 1998, 3 young Catholic children were killed when the Ulster Volunteer Force, supposedly on ceasefire, firebombed their home. The infamous Omagh bomb, planted by dissident Republicans, was to go off on August 15th of the same year, killing 29. According to BBC, the bomb that devastated Omagh town centre in August 1998 was the biggest single atrocity in the history of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. End quote. Even though the Catholics were no longer discriminated in the means of housing, jobs, or education, the relationship between the both people still won't be how it would have been if there was no conflict between the people in the first place. The people still won't see each other the same way. Therefore, the Belfast Agreement did not cause complete peace or freedom. There are still many ups and downs to the Belfast Agreement and its impacts. The Belfast Agreement has helped the people of Northern Ireland in many ways. Even though Northern Ireland is still struggling and there is not complete peace, they're getting close, and Northern Ireland is a much better and safer place than it used to be. According to John Reid, a British politician, the basis on which the Good Friday Agreement was constructed was in addressing those problems in the history of Northern Ireland. The social and constitutional problems, as well as the military problems that have been unaddressed for centuries. The Belfast Agreement had to solve many problems, and it's a very important agreement that's very successful.